What we're here to talk about is the impact of development on people who are not part of the development, nor are they recipients of the goodness that development can bring when handled properly. What we've come to understand as Northside United is one of the ways in which development can be handled properly, quotation marks, is for the community to benefit from the very beginning, from the development process. One of the reasons I was asked to come and talk about this was at a hearing. I talked about one of my daughters. I have 5 daughters, and I'm still alive. They're all grown and I have 5 daughters. But my middle daughter is married to a man who does food service work. He is a very hard-working young man. I have a great deal of respect for him. It's not who I would have chosen for her, but mothers don't get those choices, do we? But what made it a good choice was how hard Francis is willing to work for his growing family. They have 2 young children now. Francis works 2 jobs, 2 full-time food service jobs, one of which is next door to the baseball stadium. He works as a cook for Hyde Park, or whatever that restaurant is down there that I can't afford to go to. He's not a sluffer. He's not one of the people you would say, oh, if we give him a job, he's not going to show. You know, we got all kinds of excuses for why people do what they do. So I'm going to use him as my example. He goes to work every day, 2 jobs. They still can qualify for some public benefits. What kind of sense does that make? What kind of sense does that make? The stadium is next door to his job and has no investment in him earning a living wage so that he could have one job, spend time being a parent to his kids, have some health benefits. He's my prime example of why we need to do what we've come here to do, and to do it successfully. I'm also probably the end of the baby boomer generation. I'm that late end of it. But all of us are now raising children who will earn less than we earned. That's not a good thing for a parent to leave this world knowing. My child will have less in his or her future than I have had. Just talking regular folks here. I'm not talking about, your talented 10%. Just talking about us regular people. Our parents had hopes, based in reality, that we would do better than they did. My mother was a nurse. My father made brooms. He was blind. He made brooms. They didn't earn a lot of money, but they were able to do well by us, own a home, and do what they had to do. I can't look forward to the same kind of future for the grandchildren of the couple that I'm talking to you about. Yeah, I got some other kids who are doing exceedingly well. But this particular family who chose to stay here in Pittsburgh to be near Bubby, they're not doing real well. And it's not because they don't work hard. It's because the work doesn't pay enough for what they are putting in terms of their hours. You have to work 24/7. 24/7. None of us should be in that position. That's what this initiative, in its bottom line, the bottom line, is all about. Because if you can't, on 2 jobs, make a living, you can't own a home. You can't even upgrade to a larger or a better apartment in case there are some more kids. You can't buy a car that isn't a hoopty or a 2nd generation somebody's. You cannot travel. You cannot consider having those things that are auxiliary to having a good education. You send your child to school, they might need a tutor, they might need a specialist for some reason. You might want to take them on a field trip that isn't sponsored by the school. You don't have the extra to do that. And I see lots of people nodding their heads. We're not talking about the difference between $0 and $100,000. We're talking about you're already working your butt off and you can't get to 30. That's not a realistic way for us to ask our children and their children to live. Now, if you have any qualms with a community benefits package, it looks too communistic to me. It's too right-wing for me. It's too left-wing for me. Whatever goes in that category, think about your children. Think about your children's children and the fact that you will not be here to impact how their lives will go economically. that the resources you may be able to do now because you go to work every day and have a paycheck, leave when you leave here. When they bury you, cremate you, or whatever your choice is. That's the end of your resources in that grandchild's life. Who does that? Historically, that was a parent's job. How many of us as grandparents are picking up the slack for what our working children cannot do? Okay. You're nodding your head. You picking up slack?
My wife's quit working, she takes care of my granddaughter.
There you go. That's slack. We think it's wonderful. Grandma stopped working to take care of the grandchildren. Well, let's get real. The kids can't afford a babysitter. And they trust grandma. But if they had some resources, they probably could hire somebody they trusted. We need to break this down in a way that we personally understand why we're in these chairs, why you're going to get on this bus, why you're going to listen to a bunch of people like me, and why when you leave here today, your heart's going to bring you back. It's going to bring you back to this issue, and it's going to bring you back in a way that says we need living wages, and we need for everyone who builds in our community to make an investment in this community that lasts longer than their stay. I'm looking at 2 stadiums I didn't vote for. I haven't found anybody among my friends who voted for the stadiums. I voted, my vote didn't count, I got 2 stadiums. Who works there that works and gets a living wage other than the hierarchy of the 2 stadiums? It's seasonal, part-time work. We need to get real about requiring those who benefit from our tax dollars by acquisition of land, by subsidy of their building projects, to give back to this community in a way that means that my son-in-law doesn't have to work 2 jobs. That's the frame out of which I want you to take this trip today. That's the context out of which I want you to make your decision about whether you're going to continue to support Northside United and the work that it has in front of them. Because this is about to get ugly. And you can't get ugly because you like somebody else. You can't get ugly because you feel for me. You got to get ugly because it impacts you, your children, and your grandchildren.